We're halfway through counting down our top 50 games of all time, and this is our 30 to 21.
Welcome to BoxedMeeples. I'm Julian and this is Libby, and that's right, we are counting down the 50 greatest board games that have ever hit our table. If you've not seen so far, we've done 2 lists already covering 50 down to 31, and today we're covering the next 10 in that list.
We are indeed. And interestingly, I have found that sort of in this list, and perhaps the previous one as well, that sort of 25 to 35-ish range tended to be where some of my newer games to the list have ended up landing, and I think you might have a few new ones on your list in this one too.
Well, let's dive into it. Let's talk about the greatest board games there ever were.
I am kicking off with a new one to the list, and this one we've played quite a lot this year. It has a bit of sentimental value to me, so I think that's why it sort of ended up this high on the list. Allah was a game that we sort of discovered whilst on our honeymoon in Mauritius. We went to a gaming store there and we were introduced to the game. But it has some lovely mechanics, and we're coming out from those same games that have brought us The Wonders That Are Nah, and lots of those other small box games that really do pack a punch. And in this one, you're sort of engine building really with the cards that you're managing to lay out. It's tricky as to what resources you're getting, depending on what cards you're having, how many can you take from around that campsite. But essentially, as you build things out, you're trying to combo stuff more and more and more. So some of those cards might let you lay certain items on them, and the more you have on there sort of cached on the card will gain you more points. Some of them gain you points for other cards of a similar nature. Some of them are just give you points. There's a lot of different types of things that you could be aiming for to try to build that out so that it all sort of syncs together is really fun. And it's one of those, nice compact travel little card games.
Well, continuing the theme of little card games, my number 30 is also a small box card only game, and that is Sea Salt and Paper. So we discovered this around about the same time as we discovered Elwha, and it's never been far away from us, this game. It's often in a bag or in a pocket, so you can play it on the train or in a restaurant. And basically you're just drawing cards to kind of do card set collection. And that's got the beautiful art of the origami characters on there with that aquatic theme. But for me, the most exciting part of it is once you get over that point threshold, you have an exciting decision to make. Are you going to say, let's stop, no more card drawing, or you're going to say, last chance? Now, and each of those have a repercussion. Last chance gives your opponents another go, but if your score is better, they're going to get terrible scores, only scoring the largest amount of colours they have. You're going to get a bounty of points from both your cards and also the colours. So that decision at the end, when you say that bit, to me, is the most crucial part in deciding. And it's kind of that push your luck element, because probably around about the same time, your opponents are going to have a similar score. So are they going to call it? And I do love that tension that kicks in.
I'm saying nothing, because this I'll be chatting about later in this list. So my 29 is Viticulture, and it's one you've already spoken about on the list. Last year for me, it was number 18, so it has dropped a little way. And I think apart from playing Viticulture World, that's because we haven't played it a huge amount. We have played it a couple of times on the app, especially whilst we've been away and things like that, but actually getting it physically to the table, not so much in the last year, which I think is why it's just sort of dropped that little bit. But it's, as you were saying when you spoke about it in a previous list, it just makes sense, doesn't it? You know, you're going out, you're making wine. So of course you've got to have the grapes, and you've got to harvest the grapes, and you've got to crush the grapes, and you've got to bottle the wine, and then you've got to sell the wine. So all of that order of actions totally makes sense. And you know from the get-go what kind of wines you're hoping to make, how, and whether you don't like them and you need to try some more, draw some other ones to give you a wider variety of options to be able to make that all work for you. And the best bit about this game is that grande worker, and you sort of save him up for when someone always is going to go where you need to go. But if you've got that grande in hand, you can still do everything you need to do in that turn, especially when you're splitting things up with the 2 seasons and you're sort of waiting for someone to pass. Do I sort of really do loads of things because everyone else is just waiting for winter? or are you all racing to just try to fulfill the goals? And that sways over time of the game. Obviously, more things to be done in the later end of the season as you get to the later end of the game, because you're all about trying to get that wine sold and fulfill those missions and try and get those extra characters to help you out with different skills to be able to do the same thing more than once in a turn, and all of that, syncing everything up. It works so well.
I'm not saying I don't love Overboss. I clearly do. It's in my top 50. But last year it was 16, and so it's dropped quite a chunk in this. And I think that is because the app version came out and I've been playing it over and over again solo, which means I now know the routines to go through when I get certain different areas to place on there. But I still think it's my favourite of those draw 2 things type mechanic that we've seen quite a lot, kind of since Cascadia really, where you're getting obviously the tile you can place on your overworld, and also the minion that you're going to place out as well. So I do like those mechanics. I do find them quite thinky, and I do like the puzzle of it. In many ways, I'm looking forward to Super Boss Monster because my love of Otherwise games came from that game, and now the revised version of that will be coming out this year. And I suspect I'll be playing that now. It's got a solo mode a lot more than I play Overboss solo. But that being said, it's still something that's familiar and quick and easy for me to just slip back into when I have a spare sort of 20 minutes.
Yeah. Another new one to my list is a game that you have mentioned already again, and this is Arcs. I think it's probably slightly higher for me because I have played it a couple more times than you have. So this is sort of a tentative placing at the moment, but I really do love how you have these different ways to victory. It is an aggressive game. It can be, and I'm sure that most games that I will play, have played, there's going to be at least 1 or 2 players around that table that will be taking that approach.
Yes.
But there are games that I've played where I haven't really, and I've focused more on some of the card things just because of the way things drew and the way things fell out. It just didn't work for me to go down that route. So other than fighting to survive, my points were coming from somewhere else, and I think it's lovely that game does give you that. I mean, I know a lot of people talk about it in terms of trick taking, but I think it's just more about how you best manage those cards that you have, and I think what's key in this game is how you're using those to declare those victory points. So, you know, what areas you're going to be scoring for in that round, and whether you can have the card in hand and be able to get to that first player to be able to use it and declare it in the right category that you are looking to have. It's getting that synced up. That's sort of where the masterminding comes in this game, I think. And if it doesn't sync up, what's your B plan? How are you dealing with that? How are you negating what your other players are doing around the board? And what carnage are you going to cause? You know, you can see someone gathering, so you can just sort of get in their way. But, you know, it has some really fun elements like that slingshot around with your ships if no one's in your way. You can really scoot around the board and surprise some people. It just has loads of little nuance that I can't wait to delve into further, but you know.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to playing the Blighted Reach campaign, working through it, because we've got the fancy miniatures as well. We've really invested in this game, and I think it deserves a lot more of our attention than we've currently given it, especially because we love so much the other leader games. So Flamecraft was lower on your list.
Yes, it was.
And it was lower on my list last year. But it's kind of risen because, as I was saying, kind of overboard. Playing it has built some familiarity with it. And I think it's unfairly dismissed as being light, as being kind of, it is certainly family friendly and it is appreciated by children, largely because of the fantastic Sandara Tang artwork. So it's hard to find someone who won't see that and go, that's beautiful.
Yes.
Especially with the miniatures on the board and that massive playmat that comes in the box. It does make quite a kind of table spectacle.
It does, yeah.
But underneath all that is actually quite a clever, almost universal tableau builder, where you're all kind of contributing to a set of shops while also competing. And to get access to that slightly complicated setup you end up doing, all you have to really do is one of two actions. You can either, you're going to visit a shop, you can either gather the stuff from there and get all the little icons and hoard those up to build up your resources. Or if you've already built up your resources, you can do the enchantment and complete one of those missions in the middle and then make that shop even better, both of which only benefit not only you, but also collectively. So people who then go to that shop will get the additional benefits. And it's interesting that it has that friendly approach to kind of dragon placement, yet does feel competitive. And it always feels like you win from good strategy. And I think that often gets, like I said, overlooked by just the beauty of it all. Cardboard Alchemy is certainly on a roll, and they've got so many games that have just come out or that are coming out in the future that we feel this is a kind of publisher we really do need to keep an eye on, because
definitely
they are delivering games that are appealing to us, especially with their fantastic kind of quality of just the games themselves. They really do go for top-notch kind of components and finish.
As promised, there's another new one to the list. And this is Rock Hard 1977. And this game is all about the theme. It's dripping in it. And it's just, it's quite a simple-ish worker placement game, really. And you're going out and you're trying to be a rock star and you're trying to get rid of the day job as soon as you possibly can, get yourself a record deal and go out there and start performing on those stages. You're turning those amps up to 11. The boards are fantastic. But I really love how it engages in that story, how when you go after hours, you look at all those cards and you can read the fun story of, you bump into a publicist, or, you end up going back after to some fan's place. What do you do? Do you do this? Do you do that? And there are some interesting stories.
It's not complicated, but it certainly is more for an adult audience.
Yes.
It's not explicit in any way, but the implications are certainly not palatable for the younger crowd.
We are 70s rock stars after hours. And we have this candy mechanism, which is a push your luck, which is really interesting. If you take the candy, wink, wink, you could potentially have a whole nother action that round. But of course it might cost you, because you might end up having sort of a big sugar rush. And you might then lose out on an action another time. So how many times do you double down, keep taking the candy, try to do extra things, try to trade in the money you've got, try and write more songs, try and really rank up all of your dials on your player board. So there are some interesting sort of decisions as to how far you push it. And depending on what character you're playing, you might try to do stuff more or less, depending on their abilities, your manager's abilities. There's a lot of variability to mix in with how much you might want to push your luck, how much you want to go to work, and all these different elements that become part of that game. All sway a little bit depending on your manager and your player in choice. So it does, for a quite simple worker placement, it does offer something different and some different stories each time you play.
And it's such a, you're saying it's all about the theme. People who engage with that theme absolutely love the experience of it. We played with all sorts of people, and the more you invest in it, the more you get it, the more you're going to enjoy it. Another game that's clearly all about the theme is Distilled, which I fell in love with before I'd even played it. I heard about a whiskey making distilling game, and you don't just make whiskey, you make all sorts of spirits. It's not just the whiskey game. But I heard about it, saw it on Kickstarter, and was like, yep, everything that you are selling, I am buying.
And I intend on drinking whiskey whilst I play you.
And the whole game is geared around that distilling process. And then the headline act, of course, is you convert your sugar into alcohol, reflecting what really happens to build up a deck that you then shuffle, and you take the top card off and the bottom card off, and what you're left with is the alcohol you're making. Hopefully it's what you intend to make, and not just moonshine again because you've lost all the ingredients that you need, the right kind of sugars.
That does happen to me sometimes.
But that reveal is fantastic.
Yes.
It's so exciting. And it does say you can do it all simultaneously, but we find it's much more satisfying for the group we're playing with if you make a spectacle of it going, I wanted to make whiskey, but I've made vodka. Oh. And what you do with those alcohols once you made them is also really exciting. You're going to age them, and then you reveal the tastes once you do finally sell them that your aged whiskey is, and you go,
oh, I absolutely love it when someone comes out with, oh yes, this is my aged drink and it tastes of this and this and this, and they're so opposing flavours that it just is hilarious around the table.
There's some asymmetry in this. Each of the distillers come from a different region, and they can make a drink that only they can make using an ingredient that only they have. And your whole time you're spent, what are you going to add to your distillery? Is it going to be a case of you're adding stuff that controls that push a luck mechanism? Lots of people who seem to dislike the fact that it has got that random chance. But to play it properly, you control that.
Yes,
you mitigate that luck, and almost to the point of you overload the deck to guarantee you're going to get the result you want, or you start purchasing things from the common market to make you more likely to have the success you want.
I really like some of those distillery upgrades and things you can do that really can help with the making of those boozes. Yeah,
so clearly I absolutely love Distilled, but it isn't my favourite Pavison game. I loved Luthier even more, and it would be on this list, but it's not available for purchase just yet. So this time next year, expect to see Luthier on this list alongside Distilled.
But you will see Distilled from me a little later on in the list. Another new one to the list is Shackleton Base, and it's another space game. There's been so many new space
2024
games.
year was the year of space games.
100%, yeah. But I love that different variety of depending on what sort of companies you're pulling into the game. There's going to be 3 different ones each game. And I really like how when you're there on that moon, that how you score points and who has the sort of the area control almost, but within the lines of it as to who's going to be gathering the most things, and how you can really sort of set yourself up for good scoring there. There's so many different tracks to be going up and different things to be doing. Different types of workers to optimize. You want to use the right colors for the right things. You can get those extra bonuses going on. It's just been one that we've been wanting to play again and again because of that.
Yeah, I'm going to give me a moment. I'll talk about it in a few minutes' time.
Oh, I'll stop talking now then. Give you something still to talk about.
Of the Eric Lang trilogy of Blood Rage and Ankh and Rising Sun, I clearly have a favourite, and it's partly down to the setting. I do love that kind of Edo Japan era, that classic Japan with samurais and dueling. And this one, though, I love because of the partnerships you need to make. And this game is played 3 to 5. Trust me, you want to play this as an odd number of players, because then that's when it gets juicy. That's when the partnerships start shifting and the alliances start breaking once you play those betrayal cards, because there is a huge benefit to being in a combination with someone else. You're going to get more actions on the turns you take. If you're left in the cold, you're kind of on the back foot and almost trying to seduce someone else to join you, because those extra abilities you can play are so strong. But I also love the kind of battle mechanisms where it's all kind of concealed. You're placing your coins out to decide how you're going to battle, what you're going to do. And then that's revealed and you compare notes. If you win, super duper. If you lose, though, you start getting what the winner's spent on his battle, which then gives you more coins to play in another battle. So if you're taking on many battles around the board, that might actually give you an advantage. And I do love the fact that not an entire board is going to score on a subsequent turn. The place you're hunkering down may not even be up for contention. There's the different cards you get to, or the tokens you get to lay out, each have different consequences. And even in the card market, what you're going to be able to do by doing the worship, and are you going to get into some end game scoring? Are you going to make what you have stronger, or are you just going to get those big monsters to place out and rule an area in a battle? That's all decisions you kind of have to make quickly and spontaneously on an ever-evolving board. So
is both of our favourites if you look at our list, and I think that is because we've played this one quite considerably more than we have the other two.
But if it was two-player, if there's a working two-player mode, I know there's kind of variants you can do a two-player with a kind of ghost extra player in there, but if it was two-player, we would be playing this a lot more than we do. But every time, it's one of those games we play it and we go, this is fantastic. I can see why I do enjoy this game so much.
So this is the last of the new entries to the list from this portion of the list, and that's Unconscious Mind. And it's, I mean, a game that I played a session of probably a couple of years ago now at Essen, where they had those kind of mock rounds, give you a flavour for the game kind of thing. But obviously it didn't deliver until this year, I think just after Essen. So relatively recently, but I have been so excited about this game, and I'm still so excited about it, having played it, to really get into it that little bit further. I love how you go out onto that board and you're essentially having chats with people and floating your ideas over coffee and things, and to try to get different things.
I am quite shocked at how they disregard patient-doctor confidentiality when lattes are involved.
You know, we're trying to sort of hone off a new field. You've got
You're on the cusp of analysis here. It's new. It's okay. We can just tell stories about our patients. It's fine.
We might not be saying any names. It's all fine. But you have those patients and you're needing to cure them. And of course, at this point, we can't not talk about that incredible difference between the artwork of Vincent Dutray and Andrew Bosley, where one is in the sort of 1900s Vienna and it's period artwork, and that other artwork, which is all these dreams and nightmares and magical things, gorgeous fox cards. And you wouldn't think that they would go well together because they're just such different styles, but they really do look beautiful on the board. So you're there and you're trying to essentially create an engine on your own board. So as you move that inkwell around, you're getting to do more and more things as the game goes along, whilst also, of course, researching into your patients and being able to cure them, being able to move out your little dome discs on your little worker circle, which has got these 3 different areas, all the different symbols on there, and you're trying to push those out to the correct areas so that you can cure your patients. And I really like that cute little dial that you can use and you can manipulate, and there's lots of things that will allow you to move one icon over into another area or shift it up, or you have to spend them for various things. So it's a nice economy element to the game, that one. And of course, we haven't even spoken about how you go around town as well and you start publishing your theses and doing books, and there's just so much going on. There's so much more to dive into this game, and I feel like it delivered everything that I was expecting of it, and I just want to look at more dreams and nightmares.
Nemesis, I often say, is the best game that we don't own.
Yeah.
And I'm including all the kind of variants of that on here. So Lockdown is included in here. And the reason we don't own it is because it's only enjoyable when we play it with the right set of people. It's obviously having that kind of traitor mechanics in there, having, trying to work out who the people are is a key part of the game, which would be a fun adventure, without all of those. Very, very hard adventure without all of those, but so enriched by people having their own objectives and their own agenda, and working out why they're doing certain things. Are they just playing something badly, or are they playing something deliberately badly to hurt you, to hurt the team, to bring down that ship, to maybe steal some eggs, get them off? But obviously this is based on Alien, and it is dripping with theme. With those miniatures there, it is very tricky not to feel very immersed in it all.
Yeah, it's very thematic.
And you have that tension, that suspicion building up as you do, ever increasing. And it may be entirely unfounded, but when there's a chance you're going to be gruesomely eaten by a not alien, it's probably wise you are getting worried about the people around you and suspicious of them.
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoy these games with the right people, and one day maybe we'll get this and introduce it to people who have never played it, and hopefully that'll be a glorious moment for them as they experience something that is all about adventure and theme and tension. Obviously, if you're enjoying what we're talking about, do consider subscribing to the channel. We post a video on YouTube at least twice a week, and we do always talk about board games. And while you're clicking on that subscribe button, don't forget that you can get involved in the conversation down below. Let us know which games we've talked about so far, which games we're about to talk about that you really love, and what so far we haven't mentioned. Try to predict what's coming up in a future list.
Yes, we would love to hear from you. So you spoke about this one earlier in the list, so there's not a huge amount left to say. But this one has gone up. I think last year it was my 37. We had only played other people's copies at that point and a few times, whereas we got hold of a copy just before our honeymoon.
Yeah, we were playing it all on the beach.
All honeymoon, yeah. And I think that's when we sort of really dived into it. I was desperate to get it after Aircon, I remember, and we did get it before the wedding, so that was great. And all of those things that you've said are fantastic about it. Of course, we have the extra salt as well, that adds that, just a few little different things that you can do for the game. But trying to work out whether your opponent's collecting certain things like octopus or things, whether they're trying to pair things up, especially those sharks and swimmers, to steal something from you, and trying to make sure they don't start taking those mermaids away, because I am yet to manage to have a game where I managed to finish the game by getting 4 mermaids. And I think that once I've done that, I will feel like I am the queen of sea salt and paper. It is the thing to achieve from it. But it's just such a fantastic game with so many different ways to combo and win. And as you were talking about that sort of last chance stop options, I mean, I always forget to call it. So I'm just always hanging out, getting more and more points, I think. And really thinking about what colours you're picking up, not just the pairings. So there's extra things to sort of think about there and spice things up. And of course, there are cards that let you delve into the decks that are there, and can you remember which was in what one and what thing you're desperate for. So much magic in this game. It's just fantastic.
There isn't much more I can add about this game that you haven't already said, but I do think it's so clever that there's those 7 corporations and you only have 3 in a game, and they all play very, very differently. Sometimes you need to get greenhouses in there. Sometimes you're trying to work out a way to get further out into the solar system, head towards Mars. Sometimes you're just kind of showing tourists around, which I think is the most accessible and the one we tend to normally have in there. But it's kind of testament to the mechanics of the game itself that each of those still feel cohesive and relevant to what you're doing on the main area control board by building up, obviously, the moon. It's a bit like Final Girl, where it does feel different with the combinations you have, yet still using familiar and simple mechanics. I was so impressed when we were tabling this for the first time at just how easy it was to read through the rulebook. It's not often you see that beautiful symmetry of rules feeling natural. We're just kind of skipping through, going, okay, yeah. Normally a first game is always a bit bumpy in these kind of mid to slightly heavier weight style games, but this one just felt seamless and so accessible. I was a bit overwhelmed by it initially. I'm thinking, oh gosh, is this going to be a game? Is this a Libby game that I'm going to try and join it and play? But no, I found it so easy and quick to get into. And bearing in mind, there's so many variables you're kind of juggling around within the game. I think that's fantastic. So yeah, not enough people are talking about Shackleton Base because I think it was an absolute gem of a game that was released last year.
Next up from me is another Stonemaier game, who we do love their games, and Tapestry is a fantastic one. This one has gone up the list a little bit for me this year. Last year was 31.
Okay.
So not huge leaps, but you know, it has gone up a little bit, and I think that's because we had the fantasies and futures, and I really want to get into that a little bit more. I mean, people talk about this game as a Civ game. For me, it's a tracks game. And you are racing up those different tracks, whichever ones you're choosing to go for, because I tend to sort of focus on a couple of them and really try and get up there, because of course you want those buildings, the spaceships, the things that you can put on your own board and start filling that out. And that just feels so satisfying when you start filling all the little spaces out, completing rows, completing areas, and getting that to work, and feeling like you've kind of made something happen, because it just feels so satisfying to have got there first and got this physical thing that looks amazing.
And it's great, once you've got it, no one else can get it. So it does feel like you are having to race. I think, yeah, like you're saying, the Fantasies and Futures expansion did kind of take it away and add that kind of element of fantastic about it, which does reinforce the fact it isn't a civilization game. It is more of an abstracted version of building a town and things like that. So yeah, I'm going to be talking about it a lot more, a lot later on.
I won't say too much more, other than I do really like that you have that sort of battling and area control that happens in the middle of the board as well. And, you don't have to really go down that route if you don't want to. If you're not climbing that track, then it might not be your focus. But that really does change things up in the game as well. I really enjoy that. So yeah, it's a fantastic game that does have quite a lot of variety because of the amounts of tracks and the different ways that you can play things out.
Yeah. It's another new 2024 game on the list. And that is Art Project. Although technically, some people had this in 2023, but we struggled to get hold of it. And I was really keen to, because it's one of those games where I was attracted to. You might have seen in an earlier video, my love for Pandemic has waned quite a bit. And I do enjoy that kind of cooperative style game. And when we were taught Art Project by Z Garcia from the Dice Tower, not drop any names there, it was suddenly I realised that it was ticking everything I like. I love the Vincent Dutrait artwork. I love the kind of weird psychedelic 1960s setting of this, and even just the idea that we are playing the art recovery team who are stealing art from the people who've stolen the art to return art. It's just absolutely bonkers, but it does have that cooperative feel. Even when you play it out of order, you're using your resources to achieve goals and making sure you have enough people to win the battles, which are obviously dice driven. And you can mitigate that with various different things. You can recruit extra people to help out with those scores, but ultimately you have to beat those, get the art back, and it gets increasingly more difficult as it goes on. Initially it feels, that's very simple, that wasn't hard, but gosh, that builds up quickly, and you have to do a Libby 3 roll of 6 to sometimes succeed, which is now going to go down in history of the best dice rolling that has ever done at an aircon. And I've said before, and I've talked about my love for the Art Project, it's amazing what you get in the box.
Yeah, so many maps, which is fantastic because it just adds to that variety, doesn't it?
Yeah, I would be happy with just the base one. Just a normal one, okay, cool game. But the fact you have 6 different maps, each with different rules, is wonderful. It works obviously solo as well, so it's another kind of nice, quick go-to solo game. But with a group of people, there's always that sense of satisfaction with co-op games where you do collectively achieve something. And also, if you fail spectacularly, which you will do in this game, it's pretty tricky, it's a collective failure. No one's really at fault for, not recovering the art. So yes, that white hand is annoying. The Art Project is wonderful.
It is indeed. The Revive has dropped a little bit for me. It was 13 last year, but I think that's just what we've played, new things coming in. I still really like it, really want to table it again. It has so many wonderful things. I don't even know where to start with this one. I love how you're choosing whether to put the cards in the top of your board and use the top half, or the bottom and use the bottom half. But if you've put those extra sort of microchip things in, then you want those colours to match up. So you want to be able to get those extra bonuses from when you're putting your cards in to take those actions. You have that whole section on your player board, which is kind of like some sort of tunnels entwined, that you're trying to move along all those different coloured tracks and where they combine. There are certain sections there which sort of open up to have extra bonuses on that you can take, and then you can use those lovely little lightning elements to be able to activate those once every sort of round before you refresh. You'll be able to use those and take those actions. And you're basically building this engine of things that you can do to improve everything each time. So you're improving on that cardboard where you're putting those microchips in to put your cards in. You're improving on your player board where you've got those people. The more people you're getting out, it's releasing new abilities, new things, new actions to be able to do. And of course, you're opening up that other tunnels, tracks, kind of spaghetti craziness on that other board. That again is giving you more and more things to do. So as the game continues out, that progression of what you can do just hikes up. And I love that in games. And of course, we haven't even got to that sort of the main board area where you are actually sort of building out this new civilization. You're trying to get to new areas. You're trying to place yourself in strategic places to be able to get fun things and resources, maybe before someone else gets there.
Maybe someone might lay all the groundwork for some good exploration, and then someone might just swoop in and steal it.
Yeah. And you want to get out to those corner points, because if you can get out towards those areas, then they're going to be great end game scoring. So it really does push you to explore and develop that map there as well. Just so many fantastic things in this game, and I just love how it all syncs together, and it feels very satisfying.
There's lots of benefits from having a YouTube channel. You know, we've met some fantastic friends. We've had some incredible opportunities to meet designers we never thought we would meet, giving us the time of day. Obviously, we've got access to so many games, but there is the slight problem that you may say something stupid in a video and it stays on the internet. There's that video where I called it Castles of Boring D.
Oh, I see where we're going here.
Because
right,
the art was boring. And you're just rolling dice. It's no skill in Castles of Boring D.
Isn't there now?
So that's in a video somewhere. I said this, and I was very wrong.
Yes, and I told you were wrong at the time, and I said we should just play it again, and you'll like it next time.
Well, see, the reason that I wanted to play it again was because then we got the really fancy edition, and gone was a terrible art on the original cover. Gone were the boring boards, and welcome to a world where everything looks pretty. And that was enough to seduce me to play this game where you're just, what you do with 2 dice roll. It's not a difficult concept, really. You have 2 dice and you have to work out what you're going to do with them on this glorious board. Are you going to start collecting areas together and complete those goals? Are you going to get specific tiles you want to have to repeat? If you get a castle now, you get to have another go. That's super duper. Are you going to buy from the market and start using that on a board? There's so many different combinations of scoring that go on in this, and people have such different approaches.
Yeah.
It's often hard to kind of look around the table and go, I don't quite know who's winning here. Getting control of that market and deciding where things go is useful when you have that white dice. But it's a classic, and it's a celebrated classic for a reason. And obviously, I was wrong to be so rude about it.
We were subject to a bad first teach, which I think had put you off along with the art.
Yes.
But I felt like I could see the magic in all of that sort of comboing everything together and making it all work. And it's just taken me a long time to get you back into the game.
Just you and a very expensive special edition that someone generously gave us. That was maybe a contributing factor. Yeah. But yes, Castles of Burgundy is fantastic. Don't let anyone ever call it Castles of Boring D ever again.
Yeah, I'll be talking about it later on. So last for this list from me is Ark Nova. Now, this was 16 last year, so I think it's sort of there and about. But I mean, Ark Nova is a wonderful game. It's been spoken about so much, and it's got so many lovely features that work so well together. And I already spoke about Civilization: A New Dawn, and how you have that card market where the longer it stays there, the better and better it gets to different power, so you can do more and more with them. And obviously, the moment you use it, it drops all the way down to the bottom, and you've got to time everything to how you need to do what, when, how. Do I take a minimal action now and wait to be able to do that thing I really need to do that little bit better next time around? Of course, it's got hundreds of cards, it seems.
The deck is ridiculous, especially once you get some expansions in there. It's crazy.
Yeah, and we have the Marine expansion as well. And we've got all of those extra maps books that come up, so that we have such variety in there. And I think you have to talk about that crossover of scoring as well. You're sort of trying to do your conservation, but then you're also trying to get your just normal kind of zoo points. And it's all about how far they cross each other over, which can really mix things up when you get to end game scoring. I think sometimes that last round where somebody's able just to do a little magic, and it can really change everything.
You can be caught, in an unfamiliar position where it's like, I'm not ready for this to end at all. But you've triggered that, and that means I needed one more round, a few more rounds. I've just done something magical, but you've ended this now. So
yeah, and you're thinking about your alliances in this game. I think I have heard that there's some sort of super duper 3D version coming as well. So that would be interesting to see more about what that extra brings to the game. Are we going to need some sort of 3D models upgrade pack? I mean, we've got some 3D printed like pavilions and things like that, which I really enjoy playing with. Adds a bit of 3D-ness to the board and a bit more of a spectacle. But it's definitely one that we'll be getting back to the table again very soon.
I'll be talking about it later. Rounding off this list today is Outlive. Now, this was 12, has dropped quite a bit. But I really enjoy Outlive. I've said earlier, my favourite kind of mechanisms are worker placement. And this is such a clever use of that worker placement mechanic with a sense of desperation. Obviously, this takes place after some sort of nuclear apocalypse. We're hunkering down in our base. There's not many places to go. And once you start placing out people, you can only travel a certain distance. So you're kind of limited on which actions you take. And also you can tell then what your opponents are limited by and where they're likely to go. But what the big twist in this is you have strength of workers. So you have to work out which power of worker you're going to place out. Is it going to be a 3 or 4 or 5? And if you place out something strong, your opponent's less likely to go there because conflict arises. Intimidation.
If
you say there's a opponent's 3 there and you place a 5, they've got to give you 2 resources, and resources in this game are scarce.
Yes.
There's not enough to do what you need to do to achieve your objectives. And as the game goes on, the event cards start coming out, and these are affecting everyone. And you have to weigh up, is it actually beneficial for me to solve this? Because it's hurting my opponents much more than it's hurting me. But if you do contribute and solve the big event, that's points aplenty.
It is.
And you need those to win the game. The whole time all this is going on around the main board, you're exploring that world with those fun reveal cards. You're building up your base down the bottom. And the way that is tailored dictates, your playing mechanics. And the more people you get in that base, the more you have to feed.
You do, and that means shooting down some bears to have some meat.
Do some hunting.
Yeah.
It's wonderful theme and beautiful art. Beautiful. They've got the best version of it. We've got all the Kickstarter extras now, so we have everything Outlive, and it's a very quick game to play. It doesn't take long. Like so many of these worker placements, it's familiar to us. It doesn't take long for us to get involved in it, but it's so rich in theme. I thought this was going to be a kind of a merry trash style game, but there is a solid Euro game here that has all the flourishes with those lovely miniatures and those rich components and those realistic resources that just elevate it for me to being something quite spectacular.
Yes, and so that's it. That's the end of our list from 30 to 21. We hope that you've enjoyed the choices. Of course, as we said earlier, do send us some comments, let us know your thoughts on these games and suggestions of games that we might like because we've liked these ones. Really do get involved in the chat, and of course do ring that bell to make sure you get our 20 and of course our top 10 that will be coming up, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We would be really grateful if you can do that.
If you want to buy any of these games, you should head to your friendly local game store, and if you're in the southeast of England, that should be Chaos Cards, which is our friendly local game store. They also have a fantastic website, and with the discount code below, you can save yourself some money at the checkout.
You can indeed. But for now, we'll see you for our 20 to 11 coming soon.
Thanks for watching.
Bye.